I don't get on a lot, so.
Okay, if the minutes looked all right, we just have a couple items on the agenda. One of them reviewing the arena rental fee. Of course, Shauna sent that out earlier to you, one that has the yellow part that's highlighted, and then she prepared a new one that's in front of you that's maybe just a little easier to follow. It has, the rates are about the same. Well, they're not about, they are, it's the same rates, but they might break it down just a little easier. One difference would be on the one that's in front of you is that for the 4-H, sometimes they have a 4-H show be on a Saturday. So rather than actually list, rather than list that as one of the items, it's just if they wanted to have a show on Saturday, they would just pay which is the same. The weekend fee will be just the same. But they would pay in addition to that if they wanted the concession stand and the restrooms open. One thing we might point out, the adult rate is twice as much as the youth rate. So we did plug in a youth rate there to kind of encourage our youth to participate in posse and 4-H. Well, I think they're pretty reasonable. I know we had a call from a neighboring county wanting to know what our rates were, and they were anxious. I mean, if we have room for them, they'd be anxious to come to Hooper. So
That's interesting.
I think so too. Well, we used West Haven as well as the Golden Spike to kind of set, I don't know, have a standard that we could use to compare to. Trying to think if there's anything else that would be might have questions on.
So will we get some pushback from some citizens about it?
Well, we really haven't yet. Even as far as I know, even some of them that have come in, they just want to know what the increase will be. And
Yeah, well, I just noticed my wife was panning through Facebook and somebody had posted it on there that it was, I didn't know if that was going to create anything or not. It seems super reasonable to me. I mean, I've always thought that the city shouldn't take a bath on it. And we ought to pay it,
well,
but we have to pay people to, man the arena and take care of it. I mean,
and if you were to look at the seasonal rate, for example, and work it backwards, we plan on 25 weeks, and if you were to work it backwards, the math, you'll find it's really, they really get quite a discount if it's a seasonal rate as opposing coming in just by the hour.
I mean, I think isn't the city's philosophy really, we're just trying to zero out, and not trying to make any money on anything, but we're trying to maintain it.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, kind of like Tomato Days. We're not really trying to make anything on Tomato Days. We're just trying to, back in the day when we actually did it. I mean, just trying to come out with,
When we actually did it, yeah.
So I mean, that's kind of the philosophy of the city. I think it's a good philosophy, but I don't think we want to go upside down either.
No.
Yeah. Especially,
well, having reviewed this with Public Works, I think they're comfortable with the rates where they are when it comes time to pay the employee to go down and work the arena, for example.
Yeah.
If they want additional workings, and that's also listed on the fee schedule in front of you. That cut out. Okay. Yeah, the only comment that we've had. Yep, it's that one that we'll have in front.
I'm curious, because I pass that arena, every day going up the road. About the time that I'm heading up to the studio, there's always a tractor there working it, so.
Yeah, so, I mean, usually, right around 2:33,
Mhm.
when public works will work it, or
Mhm.
work it. when
Yep.
possible. And like you said, the only time that it's not done is if it's too wet for
Right.
our equipment to be in there, things like that. But this works at least once a day, Monday through the
Thursday. Yeah, if they wanted it worked on a Friday, they'd just have to pay for that to happen.
Well, they'll 5 days a week will do it. If they want Saturday, want someone to work it like between, if they had a barrel race or
Mhm.
something and they, every 2 or 3 runners, they wanted it reworked again, then that's going to cost a little more. Well, $35 an hour.
And that's
But that's watering it. That's
Yeah.
watering it and reworking it.
right. And I noticed there was like a third garbage can sitting there by the north end,
A third garbage can.
sitting there at the north end.
I don't think we even talked about garbage cans.
So, I mean,
Anyway,
well, I just noticed, I'm like, oh, so they must be getting ready for groups to come in.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
there's a third garbage can sitting there now. So, I notice stuff as I go by it. So,
sure.
I notice when things are muddy. I notice when things are worked and ready, so.
Well, I think for the most part, I think people are real pleased with the arena. Not just the fact that there's not that many around anymore.
Right. Do the fees extend to what they call the back arena? The warm-up arena?
It would, yeah, that, we didn't add additional stuff, but
Okay.
that wouldn't be worked or watered.
Okay, so.
I guess we could water it if it's just like real dusty, but that wasn't planned to be worked or watered.
Yeah. So the renters will need to know that that area is included. So if they are renting, no one else can come and use it,
Right,
but that's included in there, but the services are not done for the back arena.
right, that's right.
And when they do rent, are they given instructions of where it's appropriate to park their trailers? Or,
I don't think so either. I haven't seen any instruction.
been like a big issue, I mean, usually they all park in the confines of
right,
that dirt lot right there.
right.
I don't think we've ever addressed it, but I don't know if we have.
Usually just on tomato days, is there a big problem?
Oh, that's a whole.
But,
The
yeah,
tomato days,
that's a
yeah,
whole different
that's,
issue with it, but no, I was just curious, just so they, because some come in and park a certain way and no one else can get in there to park, just things like that.
sure,
So,
well,
yeah, you can just, right, okay. You can just
and
like,
actually, that's a pretty good part of the arena too. It's just the park, it is a lot bigger than what it be years ago.
yeah, if they go in and park the right way, they used to have that sign up that showed them how to park, and you get a lot more trailers in there versus what people do now, but
Back in the day when you just rode your horse to the park,
this is true.
you didn't worry about a trailer, but
That's what I did. Till I got bucked off one too many times and I was done.
For future agenda. So I know that we're working through, kind of chapter. And I was wondering if it'd be acceptable for council if after we review this chapter 4, we just took a pause, and allowed me time to coordinate and draft the suggested updates, and then bring those to you guys. We'll approve 1 through 4 in a block,
Okay.
and then not move on to the rest until we approve that. But if you could give me some leeway, some time to get that structured and organized before we move on to the next chapters.
Might also get legal time to look at, see if
that's right.
any of the stuff has changed and get that caught up, because that might be a bigger job then.
Reed will appreciate
Yeah,
that too.
We'll give Reed a little while to work on that.
I'm having a hard time hearing other than those that are talking into the microphone. Shauna, do you have a microphone?
It's not working.
No,
How's that? Is that better?
that's much better.
Okay.
So what were you
I was
telling?
just- No, I was just going, I was speaking to council about allowing for a pause on the review of the titles after 4, allowing us to coordinate all the needed updates and draft those into a revision draft for them to view, and then work on getting that approved. And once that's come to the table for reading and approval, we'll move on to the other chapters.
Makes a lot of sense. For example, when I looked over the ones we did last time, there are a lot more changes probably that need to be made just to update it to current law than we even talked about. So there's some work to be done there. You'll find that again tonight as we go through these. They're mostly driven by state law, and we need to talk about just how we deal with that.
Okay. I don't know, did we mention, did Jared send you, did you all got the response from him on the comment? Okay. Sent. On this one public comment.
Jared just sent an email just not long ago.
Well, I can share this with you.
No, I don't. Yeah, I don't. No. Yeah, send that to me. What's it?
Hey, it's pretty close. I mean, yeah, exactly. Usually they hack my name up, so I'm surprised he got mine.
So Jared's comment was about what?
On how well the arena's been taken care of during the summer.
Okay.
So he just,
That's basically what Lisa just said, right?
Yeah, and I hadn't even read that yet.
Yeah.
Basically, someone said that the field wasn't, the arena wasn't worked very often, and Jared's comment is it's worked every day during the work week, so. Lisa was testifying without knowing what she was testifying about, so that's good
That's right.
testimony.
And it turned out.
yeah, if we have an eyewitness right here on the council, that will,
I didn't even know that that's, oh, sorry. I mean, probably still got a term with it, but-
Isn't that a good thing, an unprompted testimony, Reed, in the court of law, if testimony comes unsolicited?
Well, you might be held in contempt, but we don't have a jail in the city.
oh no.
Awesome.
Well, we can sure let Public Works know that there is someone that's following up on them every morning, 5 days a week. So
Lights are on. So sometimes, I think my husband has Jared's number. Sometimes I'm like, text Jared and tell him the lights are.
well, we still have ways to go on getting the new lights all up, but it is, now that the weather's going to get better, I think things will start moving faster on that.
Did you forward that email to me from the Animal Services? Okay, perfect. So I'll be attending a meeting on April 12th at 10 a.m. with the Weaver County Animal Services. They're going to go over their funding and different things. And then did everybody get the public safety one or just me?
I don't remember in a public safety.
From David Martin? All right, well, he's the Western States rep. And what he was, for a small family business, the MSM Public Safety, what they basically have is like that card with, speed limit, your speed is this, those different things. Recon police power bikes, just some different things. I think he's obviously maybe soliciting equipment, but I guess he was wondering if we have any interest in any public safety needs of such, but since we go through, the trailers are delivered. I don't know if it's a rental or what, I'd have to look into it further, but that was basically what the email was saying.
Not we own one.
We do own one of
Are
those.
we using that much anymore? I know that was.
Well,
Breeds, like.
We
he
have
loved
it
that.
up in council member Osler's neighborhood right now, trying to
Slow me down going home.
slow him down.
My 2 cents on some of that type of equipment, and I think, I don't know that everyone probably agrees, but I do think that there's a couple places we could put signs that flash speed limit. I know some people say that doesn't deter them, but it always, every time I come up on one, I'm like, oh crap. And
What am I doing? Yeah.
That's me
Well,
too.
just, so it'll tell us when someone goes over
Yeah,
5 miles.
the trailer does. I'm just talking about
Oh.
the solar signs that are put in a
But
couple
my
different
point
spots.
being is that
Like
I
a
don't
rear
think we've
drive.
got any messages from your neighborhood. I think it's working.
You will tonight, because there was a couple of motorcycles, kids on motorcycles going around there, seeing how fast they.
Oh, no kid, well,
Well, that's, the sheriff will tell you, that's the problem with those. The downside to that is kids use them, say, hey, I
But
got
they
going
walk,
43, and you know what I'm saying?
just see how fast we can go in
Yeah,
6
I
seconds,
just
right?
noticed tonight that, and, yeah, exactly.
Then they'll be like, oh.
Yeah, we should have a picture.
I'll text him a little bit later. I know the one kid was going over 25 miles an hour because I walked by it right when he went flying by there, so.
Well, it should have flashed and taken his picture. He was going that much over.
Dang it.
Post it on Facebook.
Well, if you're gonna get a kid on a dirt bike with a helmet on, I'm pretty sure you're not gonna figure out who it is unless I tell you.
Oh, that was,
That's a good point.
had his helmet.
First report. Did that about the motorcycle. That was pretty funny, about the motorcycle gang. Yeah. Thought they won't refer them to the Metro gang.
How much are those trailers? How much are those, whatever you call those?
I don't know what it cost.
I don't know what,
Uh-huh.
I can't.
I was curious if we wanted to have more than one. I mean, it's, you know.
I could contact this gentleman, but, okay.
I don't know if those signs are, what they cost, if they're worth their cost, but it just, like I say, when I drive down like 4,700 and there's that one coming in, I'm always like, oh.
And they have one up here on 5100 West too, and I know well, no, of course, it's never flashing for me. I don't want you to
Of course
think.
not.
Solar
Well,
one
it's-
on
what
River
it's saying
Drive.
is, Mary, you're going too slow. That's what they're trying to say.
Oh.
Pick it up.
Pick it up, pick it up. Yeah, okay. I just wanted to bring that up just because I didn't know what the situation was with our safety protocol with those things.
Did the city buy the one that you have now?
Yeah.
We did. Yeah, it's owned by Hooper City. And it is easy to set up, in the first place or to relocate it. So
All solar, isn't it? Solar
It
panels?
is.
Yeah.
and it may be about due to move in your
Yeah,
area.
probably that, those people have had an issue down there, that's nice, but I mean, we know we'd bring it back if there's another
Sure.
issue. That's,
Yeah.
I think sharing the wealth is not a bad thing either. If there's other neighborhoods that need it or other streets that need it, that's a good thing.
I'd like to
Well-
see it on 51, those dump trucks going down that road or.
I hear you. Yeah, if there's anybody that has an idea, that's all good. That's been there for a couple weeks now, I think, over
has.
there, so.
Well, we thought that was a better idea to begin with than putting in speed bumps,
Yeah.
which we wouldn't necessarily do that, but they wanted what could be done to slow down, but hopefully it's worked.
is the correct forum for this discussion, so if this is not the correct forum, say, please stay on the discussion here, right? I was approached by an individual that says they're representing multiple developers, that we are in the process of some legal action. So I was approached by an individual that was aware of, I guess, multiple developers that say they're in the pursuit of legal action against the city. I briefly reached out to the individual just to say, you know, what's going on, and the individual told me that he would really like to come before the city council to have an open discussion, and that there would be 6 or 7 developers that would like to be part of that discussion. And so I said I'd bring it up to council to see, you know, if we could get them on the agenda. I don't know, you might have a whole bunch more involved with that situation, but I said it seems like it'd be better to have open discussion than jumping right into a lawsuit. So I don't know any of the details, and I don't know who's right or wrong, or if there's a right or wrong, but it seems like.
Well, I
maybe-
don't think we've heard anything in the city. You've had one development that everything has gone through an attorney, right from the beginning. He's never written a letter, and we've never responded to him. Developer's always gone through an attorney. So I don't know if that's.
Is there, so I apologize for my, I guess, lack of knowledge. Is there a ripcord procedure that makes sense? Reed, you familiar with that term?
Ripcord? No, did he tell you anything more? What's he concerned about?
Well, I tried not to dig too deep because I didn't want to represent, you know, the city on, like, I was just trying to say, hey, what's going on? And his concern was he's petitioned to come before the city council, but that it's been blocked.
Absolutely.
And so my comment was, if that's the case, then that's fine. We'll put you on I'd be glad to get you on the agenda and you can come plead your case. If that's the excuse, if it's an excuse and that's being used, then let's vet the excuse and allow the gentleman to come talk to the city council. If it's, you know, I guess that's my only 2 cents is I don't know. I talked a little bit with Councilman Hill. I called to try to pick his brain on whether I should call the gentleman or not, because I didn't want to, you know, put myself liable to have a discussion about things that's above my pay grade. But I did reach out and just said, you know, I want to reach back to you, but at the same time, any type of discussion further than, yeah, I think it's worth hearing would have to come before the city council in a public meeting, not with me one-on-one.
What's the procedure on that?
I don't know.
When a
Would have
developer
to
wants
talk
to come talk to the city council,
So we've got to start meeting at 7 o'clock, but I think all your questions are valid. And we're happy to have any discussion that you'd like to do that. But I don't know that those specifics would be appropriate for this open meeting. So you can give us details and specifics. So maybe a specific subdivision that you're speaking about, we'd be happy to talk more about.
And that's
some of
why I
those
said it
things-
might not be for public meeting, but
Some of those things might already be in play. And what I would suggest is it's a very slippery slope to have 6 developers in a room criticizing ordinances for future residents. And, you know, we're just here to make sure that what is built is safe for everybody.
Johnny, you're coming in and out, and it's a little hard to hear.
Sorry.
Yeah, but the bottom line is, if they're coming about a specific issue, it depends on what the issue is. But normally they'd start at the planning commission and then they'd appeal whatever they want to the city council. If it's a general issue of lack of cooperation by city or city staff, that would be something for the council to hear. But complaints about an individual subdivision, they ought to go through the right process on.
it was my understanding the complaint is directly against the city staff and handling of certain work. So I have no clue. Once again, there's no judgment on my part, but it seems like if that's the concern, that they probably should come in and discuss that with the council.
That's fine. if it's the one that the mayor mentioned, you might want to catch him privately and just go over what's happened already, because it's been a real irritation that the subdivider hasn't done any of the right things he should be doing.
Right.
Okay, well, thank you. So,
And there's just, they're like, we've never told anyone.
well, seeing it that it is 7 o'clock, we'll call the council meeting to order for Thursday, March the 4th, 2021. And before we begin and go over the items that are on the agenda, Council Member Northrup has agreed to lead us in a pledge of allegiance, and then Council Member Cox will lead us in a reverence.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our dear Father in heaven, we're indeed grateful for the many blessings that we enjoy this night. We're grateful for this city and our state and this beautiful land that we live in. Please help us that we can pay attention to those things that we need to accomplish this evening, that we can take care of them in a calm and timely manner. Please watch over the leaders of our city and our state and our country, that they can make decisions that are in accord with thy will. We're grateful again for the blessings that we receive, for the moisture and the beautiful weather that we enjoy. Please watch over us and guide us. These things we pray for in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Okay, I can't imagine there'd be any conflicts of interest with the two agenda items, but we'll ask the question anyway, if there's any conflicts of interest among the council members with any of us as far as what's on the agenda. Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the minutes. We've had a chance to review the minutes from February 18th, 2021 council meeting. You see any amendments or corrections that have to be made there? If not, we would entertain a motion to approve those.
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes for the January city council meeting. January.
February.
Oh, sorry, we're in March already. February 4th council meeting. No, 18th. Okay, somebody else want to make the motion?
Okay, we have
I got the motion.
a motion from Councilmember Cox. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Councilmember Osler. Any other discussion on the minutes? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Were there any opposed? Okay, they pass. Okay, the first item of city business we have is a discussion on the arena rental fee increases for the upcoming year. As we've reviewed those, we felt that's something that should be addressed and looked at, and one. Oh, yes. Yeah. We have any citizens' comments? I guess you could want to read this one.
We did receive one citizen comment by email. I'll go ahead and read that just for the record, from Cheryl Sandberg. Says that I would like to express some concerns with the management of the arena and costs associated with rental. First, I am sure most would agree that Hooper has a very large horse population, and we all appreciate having an available arena. That being said, the arena is, quote, rented each weeknight to various groups and organizations. The cost needs to be increased. Will the added funds go directly back into the arena? When would the increases be assessed? Agreements have already been sent out for this year on them. Would the increases be used to better maintain the grounds? I am associated with a couple of groups that rent the arena, and I know that last year we major change in the way it was maintained and worked. Last year on our night, we worked 2 times yearly, times early in the year, and it was never worked a single week after that. I understand that occasionally it may not get worked, but to never get worked was pretty bad. When on top of that, we hear that the fee may be increased. Hooper has multiple parks, only one arena. Are fees associated with the other parks being increased also? Please offer clarification, changes, and please consider the items mentioned. Virtual regards, Cheryl.
Okay, so we, in response to that, as far as Public Works, we did get a response back, which all of you have maybe had a chance to review from our Public Works Director, but he's indicated, I could just read this, that I think we'll just sum up this, that for someone to say it was worked 2 or 3 times and never again, probably is not correct for last year. There would be times if after the water was turned off, you know, at the end of the season, after October 15th, that they wouldn't go down and just keep working it to stir up dust. They can't water it. Or if during a rainstorm or something like that, it's unlikely they'll go down and work it, but there may not be anyone riding it during a rainstorm anyway. But I don't know if you have any other discussion on that. Main thing is, I think our Public Works group will always do their best. They'll always do their best to maintain the arena and make sure it's in good riding condition for those who will be using it. Any other comments maybe that have come in?
So if somebody out on Zoom would like to make an official public comment, you'll need to go ahead and turn on your microphone, state your name and address. Not any official public comment.
So it's talking about Fridays. So is it worked on Fridays or not?
No public works is here.
So that would be true. Yeah, it wouldn't have been worked on Friday then. Probably a couple times, right? But like I said.
They will go down in the event there's the youth, the 4-H groups will have a show on Saturdays, you know, where they'll have activities with their horses, and they're set up to do that. The rental rate per hour is still the same on a Friday or Saturday, and then there will be a cost to go down and work it. And if they want them to stay down there, you know, and say work it several times in the course of a few hours, then there's a price that they would have to pay to have our Public Works people and the equipment available during the whole day if that's what they wanted them. But they would have to request that.
If it was a group that wanted to rent it on a Friday, would they do that knowing that it would not be worked that day, or would their rent fee cover somebody working the ground?
If they rented it on a Friday, it would be worked one time.
Okay.
So I guess the question is, so just trying to clarify. So if this group had been renting it on a Friday, we apparently weren't doing that. Moving forward with the new fees, we will do that?
They would be. Yeah,
Okay.
well, if they've rented it, then we'll make sure it's ready for them.
So that the day when the Public Works Department's not around, then we'd still provide someone to go
Right.
work that.
They included, that's why we included a cost on the sheet that you have for arena additional water and work time. So But that would be included if they only have to do it one time,
Okay.
if they rent it for that.
But
For
if
that
they were
day.
a weekly Friday, not gonna be a seasonal fee, and would someone go work it?
If they pay a seasonal fee for that, then it would be worked for them. If they're paying to ride down there,
Then they're-
it'll be
Okay.
taken care of.
So that's my question. On the seasonal rates, are we specifying one night a week for like their contract for that 26-week period? Or is it, how many days per week is it? Yeah, and how many hours is it
So.
for a seasonal contract?
So contracts kind of get sent out, and each group, it's divided into, from 9 to 3, it's open ride, right? Monday through Friday, open to the public as a park. Starting around 3 o'clock, the sprinklers come on and they work the arena. And the youth, like 4-H youth, or like a posse groups, has like 3 to 6. And then it'd be a little bit later than that, but they've got about like a 2-hour block. And then after that, there's usually an adult riding group that comes in from about 6 or 7 to 9.
Yeah, about
7 to 9. So it's rent, and they usually just do they have one dedicated day a week for each group. But it is booked Monday through Thursday for both time slots, the whole week, 25 weeks of the entire.
And not Friday. So
Oh,
Friday,
I don't know about that, sorry.
But
Do
it
they
could
rent
be.
it on Friday? Yeah.
Yeah, it could be if that's
Yeah.
what if they did a seasonal.
so there is a seasonal contract. for
Yeah,
Friday.
Right.
it's a block. It's,
So the block of time, there's 2 time slots each night.
mhm.
And what are those time slots? How many hours?
I think it's like 3:30 to like 6, or is it 4 to 6? It's
I think it
about
was 4 to
2 to
6.
2.5 hours. I'm sorry, I don't know
Yeah.
for sure on that part.
I think it's 4 to 6.
When
and
kids
then
go to
like
posse,
7
it's
to 9.
usually
It's
4.
25 weeks though. Is that right?
Yeah,
Right.
it is. It's 25 weeks.
It starts
So my
from
math
April 15th through October 15th. That's the,
So if I want
Right.
to rent it, if I come off the street and I want to rent it, it costs me $50 for an hour. But if I want to rent it for the season, it costs me about $5 an hour.
if you do the math, that's what I say, if you get it might be a little more than that, but if you do the seasonal rate.
That's a pretty good deal.
There's no question.
Really good deal.
Is there,
But the 25 or the $50 an hour is a good rate for adults. And then as it shows on here, the youth is half that, $25 an hour.
When would we have time for hourly or daily rentals if it's always being used other than Saturday and Sunday?
Because you can still rent it like on a Saturday. You can still rent it for a few hours on a Saturday, or you can rent it for the entire day for a Saturday.
So it's just Saturdays.
Or,
Or earlier in the day,
yeah,
but
I
you
mean,
don't want.
usually, we've never, ever had
Or-
anyone request earlier in
Yeah.
the day during the week. But we do sometimes on Fridays and Saturdays. We never really rent it on a Sunday, because then we don't have the obligation to have staff down there on a Sunday to do that. But each 4-H or posse group, or 4-H usually does a show every year for each group, and that's usually done on a Saturday. So that would apply for like the hourly rate. Or sometimes adult riding groups, things like that. Or sometimes we do have a request to have small events at the arena, like separate private rodeos and things like that. So we have like maybe an hourly or
Yeah, I don't ever remember anyone saying that someone rents it for a season all day long.
Yeah.
Where they're there right from morning till 9 o'clock at night.
That rental agreement, there's,
right, yeah, they are. I mean, there are some state statutes for equine, exemptions, but we do require that they hold like liability insurance for the city, so that they can, if there was anything to occur,
And that might be one thing you can see, we had Shauna write in there that we had missed, that if they have spectators, then there is a $1,000 deposit if there's going to be sitting in the bleachers, as well as the insurance policy.
Is it a deposit
So-
or payment? So they get the money back if they,
They'll get the money back, right?
Have
Oh.
more requests for seasonal rentals than we have time slots. Like,
No,
I've
no.
never heard any, I haven't heard that that's been a
so we only
problem.
have 10 slots basically, right? And
Yeah,
they're-
I've never really run into a situation where we have more youth groups and more adult writing groups wanting to rent it than the slots we have. It's always just been a consistent, you're kind of the only groups that are out here. I'm here on Mondays. So,
So all we need to do from this conversation is just make sure we have somebody working the ground on Friday,
right.
if we have a contract for
And
Friday.
hopefully that's what that does, like a small increase to these prices will ensure that we go forward and we're gonna work it, we're gonna just solidify the things that we already do.
And to answer her one question, the fees, the increase of the fees and stuff, that's going directly to,
Yeah, it goes right back into the
right to
park
the
fund.
parks. So.
Right.
So the last question I had was on the youth daily rental, which would be a Saturday. Were we really only charging them $25 for the entire day?
We were, and I can't speak to the history of those decisions. I know it was kind of a topic.
Mhm.
But they did only get that daily show the entire day for
I just,
We-
doing the math, you go 700% increase from 25 to 200 seems pretty steep, but 25 for an entire day, holy cow, that's,
Yeah, and it would be.
Pennies per
it would
hour.
be- Also, it could be hourly, so some of these shows, if they are only gonna do for 2 hours, we would just charge them that hourly rate. But I mean, it was on the side of not sustainable. So they, not only did they get the discounted seasonal rate, but they also got one show a year, plus use of the concessions. And they only had to maybe pay for additional workings should they request it. But I mean, we've made significant upgrades to the inside of the concession stands and we're working on significant upgrades. So I think those prices need to slowly reflect what our goal is.
Kevin, we talked about that, and that's when we had a group call about increase. They had no problem with the $25 an hour for youth. So I think it's a real competitive price for any arena around, better than most, actually.
it's almost like we ought to just do away with the daily rental fee and just go with the hourly, and just, because it's the same
well,
amount. The
we just
daily fee
kinda-
is 8 hours.
We kind of added that in here, but we think that's what would be, when we talked about it, we think that's what will be used the most, is just an hourly rate,
Mhm.
unless they go seasonal.
Right. Okay.
So if, at this point, if, after we've discussed this, I'm not sure, Reed, if this takes a motion to approve these to put the resolution in process, or,
go in as part of the fee schedule, is that correct?
right,
You're gonna have to do a resolution to adopt all of the changes to the fee schedule, so you don't
Yeah,
really
it's
need this if you're gonna combine it with others.
It's only listed as discussion today, so we'll solidify the rates that you'd like to charge today. And then you'll see it come back to the agenda on the third Thursday.
For-
And
for the
that-
motion,
mhm,
okay.
And that will have the resolution attached with an additional copy of your finalized suggestions.
Okay, any other discussion on that?
One last question. The arena lights, are they included with the seasonal rental? Or with the daily rate if they do it at night?
No,
Right,
their arena lights are in addition to what listed
In
there,
addition to the seasonal rental?
right?
So,
And I think usually by the time they start renting it, it's light till almost like 9:30, 10.
Yeah.
So they're out before that, but we've always
About September.
accommodated, like, should they need the lights, like, we're really good to help them through that. But there really hasn't been a need for it either.
I don't think it would hurt to not even have a solar light though on that west parking area. by the gate, a solar light.
Where they park the trailers and trucks?
Just because I know when they're finished riding, it's dusk, it's getting dark, but by the time they're loading up and different things, it is dark. And
Yeah,
so
yeah,
maybe,
I can talk to Jared about that.
maybe
We can
just a
see what we
solar
can
light of
do
some
to
kind.
increase the safety
Okay.
for that
Yep.
parking lot.
Okay, so there are no lights that come on after dark?
yeah, it could
Down
be
there.
on times.
I think, isn't
And
there
then-
like there's like one or two?
I was thinking
safety
there was
lights, I
some in the
think.
parking, but maybe there's not.
No, it's pretty dark.
Okay,
Part of our upgrade from our ramp grant last year, could we put some of that money towards something like that perhaps?
There used to be, I think, a little light out in the back arena, but I don't know if it's ever on.
The back
but-
arena light, well, now we'll have to check it for summer, but it has been on in the past.
Yes, it has, but over
We'll
on
just
that,
double check it, yeah.
over on
That's
that
only back
northwest.
arena, yeah.
yeah, we'll check on both areas, the lights for the parking lot and the lights in the back. Okay, next on the city business is a review / discussion on the Hooper City ordinances. So today we're going to go through Title 3 and 4, which involves business regulations and licensing. So I guess we'll do it just like we did last meeting. You just kind of go through areas that you may have highlighted or have questions on. And Shauna will make note of that, and then Reed will take some time over the next little while to just update anything that needs to be updated as it relates to state ordinances.
So let me maybe preface it by, particularly in the revenue and finance area, talking about some of the things that really ought to be considered. The sale and use tax, the municipality has the ability to impose a 1% amount that's added on to the other state amounts. And we've already done that. You'll see that in the ordinance here. But pretty much everything else about collection and distribution of sales tax is state regulated. So a lot of the material that's in here has been superseded by state law now. So I think my suggestion for this area, and probably also for the telecommunications area, would be to retain the amount that we've asked for the local addition, but then just refer to the fact that we'll base it, the collection and the distribution on state law. Because that's what's happened anyway.
Okay,
Shauna?
so that is one area that I had a question on. So that 1% is a 1% on sales tax for businesses that are located in Hooper City. And that would be over and above the sales tax that we're given from the state. Is that right?
That's correct, but it can only be imposed on the entities that are taxable based on state statute. For example, our statute says you're imposing it on service, and you really don't do that. If you've got a doctor that's performing services in your city, you don't impose a tax on their services. So many services you can't tax. You can only tax the ones that are provided for by state law.
Okay. And is that 1% also state law, or does the city can they adjust that?
You can make it less, but you can't make it more.
Oh, okay, all right. I forget I asked that question then.
So where state statute now is to collect sales tax on internet-based sales, is Hooper City able to recoup 1% of internet-based sales? And how do we do that?
That should, again, all of the collection and payback of sales tax is done entirely by the state. So to the extent that the state is collecting that and able to identify that it's in Hooper, they should be providing that amount as well. Shauna, do you know any more about that? About the internet sales part?
I don't know. I can call and ask. far as how they're deducting that. They don't really give us a printout when we get our distribution for sales tax. But what I do know is usually there's, when you do make a purchase of any kind, or even a business has a sales tax, dedicated to a tax zip code or a taxing area. That's how it flows through us. I can get more detail. As far as, I don't know if it's separate at the state and they just, similar to like how they consider a portion of like, I don't know.
So we can find out the answer to that question, but the other thing that occurred to me in talking to Shauna today was that in both these areas and in the impact fee area, state law has been significantly changed since these were adopted, and so many of the provisions are not citing current code. The code provisions in state code are voluminous. That's an easy way to say it. So the way to start probably in these revenue areas would be, I think, to start with the League of City and Towns and see if they have some model ordinances that have been adopted and approved since any changes have been made in the state law. And then we'll take a look at those and modify those to reflect any things that we want to do uniquely in Hooper. The idea of going through all those state statutes and trying to create our own ordinance from scratch, boy, that's going to be very, very time consuming and probably not worth the time because what we get is going to always be regulated by the state anyway. Now on the impact fee areas, that's jumping ahead a little bit. That also has been completely rewritten since this code was adopted. And they're very, very picky about how they let you justify your impact fees. And that's why I asked last time if we were looking at making changes in the impact fees as part of the new general plan analysis. And if we are, that's something that really ought to start right now because it's a lengthy process to do the study and then go through the approval process. So my comments would be kind of the same there, that if the League of City and Towns has a model ordinance that's been adopted under the new code, we could start with that and make modifications and then just replace what we have. If not, I'll have to go through what we've got and try to make sure none of it violates the new state provisions.
One item that came up with me that I heard about, as far as even like our roads here, impact fees that affect those, especially the new ones that are put in new subdivisions. There's different grades of asphalt that can be used. It's just like anything else. You kind of get for what you pay for, and our impact fees could either be for a 3-year road or a 5-year road or a 10-year type road, as far as how long it lasts. I think a while back they elected, or at least made the decision, that the materials used for the road really should last 10 years or so. You don't want to, within 3 years after a new road's put in, now the city's having to go back and fix potholes and that if it had been a better material, it would have lasted longer. So I guess my question is, if there are, when it involves impact fees, if there's areas that the city, can we require a certain standard, like maybe we've done with roads, that might give a little more longevity to what these fees are covering? I don't know what else there would be. I just use roads as an example.
Well, the impact fee for roads would be based on what the city determines they want to use for the roads. And if they're different qualities and you want the higher quality, then that would have an impact on the impact fees. But keep in mind, impact fees are only assessed against those that are new
Right.
in the city. So if you're improving your roads, most of that's going to have to be paid in other means other than impact fees.
Right.
You can't force a developer to improve the roads all over the city when you're not doing the same thing with your own residents. And if you go to 3-2-4, that outlines the areas that you have authorized by ordinance to have impact fees imposed. That would be parks, which would include trails, storm drains, storm drainage, transportation, which would cover roads as well, and sewer impact fees. So those are the general areas where impact fees are applicable in the county or in the city. And so if you want impact fees on other areas, we'd have to do that as part of a statute change, and then we'd have to do the study to justify what those amounts would be. And if you want to change the current amounts, again, you're going to have to do a study to show that that's justified.
All right, that's good to know. Those studies will never hurt. I think it's just good to do as many of those as we can in the process, like you mentioned, Reed, in the process of reviewing our plan here for Hooper. Try to get as many studies as we can in place to make sure we're headed in the right direction.
Now, the other tax and revenue one that kind of the same thing applies that I just mentioned, and that's the transfer for the telecommunications tax. That's an interesting one, and I think the state statute doesn't allow the percent that we have imposed here, so we're going to have to adjust that from 4% to 3.5. And the question that comes up nowadays is, what is telecommunications? Cable companies putting down cable for internet use argue that is not telecommunications, that's internet. On the other hand, right now we're communicating through the internet, and that's certainly telecommunication. So to the extent that you use that in telecommunication, that's maybe going to be something that ought to be subject to the tax. So those are issues that we probably need to think through and find out what other areas are doing as we redo the ordinance. That probably just confuses everyone.
I think it helps.
So heavily regulated by state law, it's really hard to do much different than what the state has already given us.
Right.
So it looks like most of that first section is really, there's no sense in it discussing much until we get the new code.
Like Reed's got some work cut out for him.
Right.
So does anyone have a question? So my first question comes on 4-1-2. Anyone have a question before that?
So moving to Title IV.
Yeah. Somebody had a question before that. That's great. The first thing I had marked. 4-1-2.
I had a one in 3-2-4 that Reed just mentioned. It talks about incorporated versus unincorporated areas of the city. And I didn't know we had unincorporated areas. I thought the city was city. Do we have unincorporated areas in our city?
I don't think so.
I don't think we do either.
No, you can't. It wouldn't be part of the city.
Okay.
So number 2, 324A2 says unincorporated.
So 3, 2.
3-2-4 under A2.
Storm drain impact. Yeah, that's just a misprint.
Oh,
That should be
Yeah, that's,
So everything's incorporated.
Yeah, it is. That's just a misprint.
we can consider that a typo. Is that what we're saying?
It's clearly a typo. And that
Yeah.
type of thing, I think, Shauna, you can just change. That may have happened when they put this in the electronic form.
Okay.
Good catch, though.
Yeah, Ryan. You know what?
Well, 2 and
Councilman Hill,
3,
you're the man.
right?
I think it's getting too boring. I'll call Councilman Hill.
So Ryan, that's item 2 and 3 on that, right?
Treated looks like it's incorporated areas.
Oh,
Or
incorporated,
no, it's,
okay,
yes, it's just 2.
Okay, just two.
On 325, it talks about, in letter B, that the impact fee schedules are amended from time to time. Is that year by year, every few years?
No, it's very seldom because again, the cost of doing a study is pretty high and you
Okay.
don't do it very often.
All right, thank you.
So on the consolidated fee schedule, does it list impact fees for roads, parks, all those things that we just talked about? Does it storm drainage, transportation, and the sewer is in here, but the other three are not. 3-2A-2 has the sewer impact fees, but parks, storm drainage, and transportation, I couldn't find within the body of this. I just wondered if it's on a schedule somewhere.
I guess it's on the consolidated fee schedule, but I don't have that in front of me, so I'm not sure. Shauna, how do you decide what the amount is? Where do you go to when you look up the amount of the impact fee?
Yeah, it's just on the,
So it's assessed per subdivision or per home, basically.
correct, for building permit.
Okay.
I'm not familiar with some of this 32A2, where it says the identified Freedom, North, Low, and Town zones have a certain fee.
That's based on some of those areas,
For
part
those,
of a gravity fed system and not necessarily the other. So there aren't any homes anymore that tap into that.
Okay,
But when they,
so is that something that needs to be,
there still could be potential that they,
there's some that's still
tell me where
there.
that was again.
32A2, amended sewer impact fees enacted. 32A2, Apple.
Where the sewer impact fees are listed. One's 4021, the other one's 4338.
That those fees would start
Oh,
on
okay.
September 4th of 2009.
right, yeah, that would be up to you. You guys didn't want to delineate anymore.
But we still have in the very southeast corner, that subdivision going in.
Oh,
That be in the Freedom area? Isn't that lift station fed? That's not vacuum sewer, is it?
That, what you said is right. There's only the 3 vacuum stations, so those would be lift stations in the area that you just talked about up behind the elementary. Right.
yeah, so
Last
that's the last
subdivision.
little bit. So
Yeah.
those are just,
And Turner Legacy and then the one to the
All right.
south.
I didn't know that, why they were charged differently. I didn't know that they'd be on
yeah,
something different.
they
so.
just, I think they just, I mean, and I wasn't here when this was done. so
Right.
I don't know, but yeah, when they put the impact through the building permit, those are what,
Okay, thank you.
and that's probably based on like a study that was done that recommended the fees that we charge.
Vacuum is much more expensive than gravity.
That was implemented on September 4th of 2009. Is there any increase now?
There could be, but we would have to have the study.
The
Yeah,
whole new
like,
study?
That's not
Okay.
something we could just say, oh, let me
Right.
recommend, yeah,
Okay,
those are very, very, very detailed and we would contract a
okay,
consultant to do that.
perfect, thank you.
I think is, Reed, isn't that what you're saying? If we're wanting to change any of those impact fees, now is the time to start the process during this open period, right?
Absolutely. And they are at least 10 years old and probably some of them older than that. So it makes a lot of sense to go through the process.
Yeah, so we may need to kind of circle back around to this and have a deeper discussion on our impact fees.
I think that to start off, it might not hurt to have staff take a look at what the impact fees are in surrounding areas. And if they're significantly higher than ours are probably not properly calculated with increasing costs. Because everyone adopting them would have had to go through the same process. So if you look at all the adjoining cities and they're higher than we are, it probably means they've gone through an analysis more recently than we have, and it would maybe allow us to steal some of their material and also do a study ourselves.
So could we ever take into consideration how different our system is from theirs? I mean, the only way we ever gravity feed in Hooper is if we're we gravity feed to one of these lift stations where we actually have a lift station in a certain subdivision, like up in Freedom. Everything else we vacuum in, which there's no one else, there's no surrounding city around us in the state of Utah that would vacuum from a zone and pull that into a lift station and then lift it. So we've got the 3 vacuum stations and referenced here, we've got the low, the town, and the north. That is it's just so unique. I mean, there's a lot more, there's maintenance on vacuum feeding that in as opposed to gravity feeding it in.
Yeah, and you're going to have a lot better information on that now than you had back before the sewer system.
Yes, we have a lot better information now.
So
but
the
it's
starting,
kind of like
I'm not
kind of like
suggesting that we would be the same at all as other cities, but it would be an indication if you looked at Syracuse, for example, and their fees were higher than ours. That doesn't make sense. Ours probably ought to be a lot higher than theirs because of the type of system we have.
And there are some things that we can just look at, when you mentioned, Reed, about the age of them. I mean, some of these have life expectancies that's actually being metered. In other words, if they have a 20,000 hour life expectancy on a vacuum pump, for example, and we look at that and there's 19,000 hours on it. I mean, it is something that we need to, start looking at. And as you mentioned, we need to get some good information that would see how we're going to handle upgrading those.
So back to Reed's comment on the telecommunications section. I didn't see it in here, but is there somewhere that it talks about what is telecommunications and what is not? Like the internet-based services, for example? Is there definitions here that talk about that? Because I think
that's where it becomes confusing, right? I mean, right, this is definitely telecommunications, but yet
Well, we have our definition, but it refers to the state code for the definition. That's right at the end of 3-3-1. So if you go to 3-3-2 and look right above it, it gives you the definition. But that's probably changed in the state law significantly recently as well, with the same issues in mind.
So are we thinking that definition needs to be updated? Doesn't really describe.
Possibly.
Yeah.
Again, there's a lot of discussion with these folks that are putting in internet as to whether they're subject to these rules or not, because they're claiming internet is not telecommunications, but that really isn't true because it is. So that's a discussion that's going on statewide. So you may have to demand that internet providers break out what % of their work is conferencing like this and talking back and forth, as opposed to just traditional internet where you're searching up some topic. Email, again, is that telecommunication? Certainly seems like it.
So do we currently collect 4% tax on that? Is that what 3-3-3 talks about?
Well, the amount that you can collect has been changed to 3.5 by state law. And whether we're collecting that on those types of operations, I couldn't tell you.
Says this tax shall be levied beginning July 1, 2004.
Well, and a lot's changed, right, in the last 16, going on 17 years.
The world has changed in the last 17
The
years.
whole, right, the whole world has.
So we need to do a little education, I think, for the council and certainly for me on just how we're going to do all of this. But it's a potential nice revenue source, and if we can get it all worked out, we want to make sure it works. What kind of revenue are we getting from that now, Shauna? Do you know?
I don't. I'm not really involved with that. I think but I can find out those answers.
It's on chapter 3.
Oh, maybe we ought to go to Title 5 or Title 4.
Kind of spin this plate over here and then we'll move.
One of our many jobs.
And that's not really like, I'm not the deciding factor. You'll know that commercial business licenses always come to you guys for approval. And then other than I take the information, I try to make sure that it's all accurate and that it complies within the uses that we've allowed in this ordinance. And it essentially always goes to the mayor.
Well, one thing that Shauna and I talked about earlier today, if you go to 4-6-4, talks about license fees. The definition of what those terms mean may need to stay in the statute, but the fees themselves, it would seem like ought to go into the unified fee schedule rather than in the ordinance. That way it's a lot easier to change them.
Yeah, we had kind of talked about these fees all stay the same and they are represented in the consolidated fee schedule. But I think for longevity, it would be better for us to reference those numbers in the fee schedule that ensure in making sure this information is correct instead of listing out the actual money totals or monetary charges. Or more easily able to adjust.
That makes a lot of sense to do that. Make reference to the fee schedule so that we could go in and adjust the fee schedule without having to go back and change them.
And then Shauna, I think, mentioned that now some we can't charge fees on, so we need to make sure that's clear in here as well.
What was your question on 418?
1-8,
That periodic inspection, is that?
periodic inspection. Do we have an inspector that does that? I know we have our inspectors for other things, but I'm just was wondering, being a business owner in the
Yeah.
in this city, I don't know if I've ever had a business here.
I don't know how long you've had your business, but when you submit for a business license and you are a new business, that's all I can, you're a new business and that business has public come into your facility, commercial facility, into even your home, if it's a consulting, you have a home office, we do a safety inspection, and that's our building official. The periodic inspection is, and we can ratchet that down, we can tighten it if you see there's areas that there's issues, but what we have done is about, so when it's a daycare or a hair salon or a nail salon, those types of things require health safety inspections from Weber Morgan Health Department. And those are, documented and put into the file. And then daycares are done every year. We always make sure we ask for that additional information. And then the periodic inspection is about every 3 to 5 years. When we go to do our annual renewal, we send out another thing for those specific businesses that deal with the public in that way or provide services in that way. And we have them have an additional inspection.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you. That clears that up.
So right close to that section 4-1-7 talks about license designees. So basically the sheriff and all deputy sheriffs, the planning director, director of licensees, designees, building inspector, and so on and so on. Talk about basically if they come to a knowledge of persons doing business without a license, that they should let the license director know. Does that happen? Have you had
It
instances
happens
of that?
sometimes, yeah. So we do coordinate closely with Weber Fire. So we send them over annual reports for all our commercial businesses, and they kind of let us know if they find something on their inspection requirements that maybe we haven't set them in the past. And then also similar to our ordinance officer. So if they, within their duties, if they go out there and they see something because they're there for another inspection, then they usually inform us, and we try to reach out and say, we know you're running a business. This is the requirements within Hooper City. Kind of fill this out and register it and get your license.
So the reason I bring that up is jumping to 4-7-14, talking about slaughterhouses. We in fact have one that's illegal, or had one, I don't know. if
Over
it's
on a subdivision, that's funny.
Ceased business or not, they told us they were going to. But can we have the sheriff enforce that?
Well, we already talked to our ordinance officer. She's been made aware of it, and if we see any other activity out there after the 1st of March, he'll go out there.
Yeah, so we've been working with the
Yeah, State Department of Ag.
State Department to see what's legal, what's not. We know that it's not technically, those are allowed in Hooper City, not in that zone. And we don't technically have a zone for that. And, we're working through that. Supposedly that was supposed to be monitored as of March 1st. So if there's any additional activity.
So
That-
our code enforcer helps us with that.
Right, and that is an activity that is pretty obvious to the neighbors out there. So,
And then can and does the sheriff department get involved if need be or not?
Yeah, I think so. And I think the one positive thing about contracting through Weber County is they work close with county sheriffs. So it's been a lot easier for us to obtain maybe access or warrants that would allow us access onto property that we wouldn't have. So yeah, she would work, if it was escalated to a point where that was what we needed to do, then she would work closely and coordinate that with the sheriff's department or the other departments, whoever's jurisdiction that is.
and we've involved the Weber County brand inspectors too, to make sure that there's records made these brand inspections have been made the day that someone's been out there slaughtering the cattle. Harvesting the cattle. Maybe that sounds better.
I just want to tell the mayor that if you look at 4-7-5, this should be good news maybe for him. It was talking about the cabaret.
Yes.
If you read the last sentence of that, it says, and where the patron's mayor may not dance. I want you to
That
know
is good news.
You do
That-
not have to dance when you go to the cabaret.
That is good news.
That's a good one.
It's okay, I just thought it'd be fun to.
So on to that.
In fact, I'm going to underline that.
Just a little bit. It probably would be advantageous if you could reach out to some other council members. As we work through the general plan, as we work towards putting in some more areas of control, making sure we have a solidified plan for businesses that you would like to see, not like to see. Certain businesses of sexually orientation businesses. There's specific ordinances out there through other cities, SOBs, and what we'll allow and what we won't. And we don't really have that because it's never been an issue, but since you touched on that, it would be proactive for us to start looking into those types of things as we work to bring in more commercial.
I know, I saw that. I was like, what?
On the paragraph about fireworks stands, does there need to be a fee in that paragraph, or is that on a fee schedule as well?
It is on the fee schedule, and I think me and Reed will work towards actually taking off the fees, retail licensing fees listed in this ordinance so that they're only reflected on that.
Now, the two that are a little different would be chapter 8 and 9, residential solicitation and homes and a home, well, 8, 9, and 10, home businesses and special events. So if you've had a chance to go through those are ones that you might want some input from Sean as to how they're working. And if you have changes, those are ones that certainly we ought to look at.
I had a question on 482. Soliciting. You know, they have to come in and get a license, a certificate to do that, and then get an identification badge. I personally would not know if that identification badge was real or a fake, because I don't know what that's supposed to look like. I don't know if there's a way for us to make aware to the HIPAA residents, like, this is the correct, you know, these are the things you need to look for to make sure it's legal. Because as soon as somebody knows that we have, you know, certain badges or whatever they need to show, that can be copied really easy.
Sure. So when solicitation requests come in, they do fill out an entire form, require background checks for not only Utah, but if they have an ID from a neighboring state, we require both. So we receive that documentation first before we even issue a solicitation. We also take into consideration, we would verify the company. There's a copy of the business license for that company. We verify all that information. And then they do receive a badge with the city logo on it, with their picture on it. We require, essentially, we require a passport photo. That goes with the badge. And they're required to wear that. So from time to time, we do get calls from citizens saying, I've had someone at my door. Do they have a solicitor's license? And if they don't, we call the sheriff's department. Let them know that they need to have a solicitor's license. What we could do if we wanted to educate more of the citizens on what that badge really looks like, so we're not, so people know that it's real or not, we could maybe put that into the newsletter saying, hey, this is what a solicitation badge looks like. And they're not allowed to be in the city unless they have one.
Put it on our website, perhaps.
Sure.
Yeah, even on the website,
Put your-
Anything like that.
Yeah.
little something. that-
Idea.
Right?
Exactly.
A little seal back.
I can do that.
Back to your question, can you stop them from reduplicating and making their own badge? A violation of our ordinance by soliciting without a license is a pretty minor violation. But if you start forging a badge, that's a much more serious offense. So if they get caught doing that, the ramifications are pretty serious.
And that is like for a 1 month period, is it
It depends. We have options. So we have a fee for just days, and then we have a fee for longer, and they can pick which one they want. But there's a fee for every person that's out there walking.
each person?
Yeah.
Okay.
I just got a text from Jolie. He says he can't hear some of us, so.
It's easy to hear Shauna. The council members are pretty hard. You need to talk into those mics, I guess.
Okay. All right. Yep, that's what he said.
Jolie, no. Yeah, because it's not turning on. Hello?
Better.
I take this off, it works better. Hello? Oh,
Oh,
Why don't you go through each one of you? I can tell you whether you're being heard or not.
that's true.
oh, can you
Oh,
hear me, Reed?
No? Well, just not with that.
Can you
Not
hear me now?
that
Yeah,
one.
there you go.
That's good.
Okay, from now on, I'm here.
So it has like a divider on it, so it doesn't like to overlap. Supposed to be clearer for Zoom. So it will have a delay as soon as it picks up your voice. So maybe tap it and then give it trying to get him fixed.
I'm talking now. No, I wasn't talking loud enough. But now I am. It's up, I can read it on the screen, so something's coming along.
Transcripting. From now on, Reed, you have to read the screen, okay?
I also had a question, and this is probably a person that would not have a solicitation license, but every once in a while through the community, there'll be somebody that orders blacktop for their driveway or their home. And then, the people go around and try to sell the extra. Like, oh, your neighbor just did this and we've got this extra. Oh, we'll charge you this much to put it down. In fact, I was at my parents' home when somebody tried to do just that. And so I said, well, do you have a license to do that over here? Or was that just for that, and so they kind
Yeah, so that's unfortunately like a seasonal issue, and we kind of prepare for that every season to have that type of work being done in the city, and we watch for it pretty closely. But that's even completely separate. They need an excavation permit because they're actually working in the city right away. And there's standards for that, because what ends up happening is they do lay that, then the drainage is off. It drains from their yard, but it floods your yard. So it's a pretty serious thing. And the minute we see that, we usually are out there. Public Works is usually out there with the sheriff.
Okay, thank you. That's just like, I know they're not licensed to go out and just sell the rest, so. Yeah, thank you.
But they would be in violation of this ordinance, by the way.
Yeah.
And then I had another one, sorry. 4-8-9, time of day restrictions, for that soliciting. You can't do it before 9 AM and you can't do it after 9:00 PM. I think that 9:00 PM is a little late. For somebody to, they could come to your door at 8:50 PM and still be legal to solicit, and that's kind of late at night for some people.
In the wintertime, yes. Summertime, probably not, but seasonal for sure.
While soliciting.
We've never really had anyone apply for outdoors months.
Okay.
It does come around spring and summer,
So
and
it's more seasonal
it
at that
tends to
time.
be geared towards solar.
Here,
Uh,
good stuff.
I don't know that they ever get legal.
Well, that cleaner?
Safety, security systems, solar systems, things like that, pest control.
Okay, so it's more seasonal, so that time frame's not a big issue.
It's up to you. You can change it. You can change it. All I can speak to is we haven't had any we have complaints about people who are not like registered solicitors. We've never really had a complaint as far as, I had this license come to my door at a late time.
Okay,
We haven't had that complaint.
all right. Thank you.
So anything, if we go to the next one, any comments on the home occupation business issues?
The only suggestion that I had, if you guys haven't already considered it, is on 493, and I had talked to Reed. We don't really, the state passed legislation a few years ago, and we don't really classify the home occupations like this anymore. So it would just be an update to what we're labeling these, so it complies.
And the 494 amounts probably ought to be in the fee schedule as well.
Right, and then moving amounts. So we don't, the state passed legislation that would exempt home occupations that have no offsite impact. Is zero, so we're not gonna be allowed to charge a fee. So that's what we've done, so we switched it to just minor. And then to like large. So if you have like inventory, vehicles, trucks, like that, you're still just in the large. And then if you have non-impacted business, then it's just minor, which we ask that you register so we can keep all that documentation, because it could change again and we want to make sure we have that. There's no technical yearly fee. If you need a documentation, then there's a $15 just one-time fee, and we'll print you a license. There's no.
So I did have a question about that next paragraph down, conditions, employees, small and large. So large just talks about shall limit employees to members of the family who reside on the premises. So what happens when they have employees that are not members of the family that work in the home? What does that classify as?
So they could have 2 additional employees that come to the home, but that's it. And then the
More than that.
so they can have the people that live in the home. Is that what you're saying?
So like, I know one, for example, that has more than 2 additional employees on site that are not family members.
So when they come in for a business license, we give them a copy, ordinance restrictions, and so they have more than that on there. We just need to be.
So it's not a different classification. Okay.
Just really not allowed. The point of the home business is that nobody would really know that you're running a business out of there. Not. If it is, it needs to be in a commercial zone. And I don't know what business it is. We can talk about it later. Might not even be out in a residential.
Okay. The problem with, is I'm in that group, and it's, there's the large business, this whole thing needs to be revisited. It's not right. I mean, how I'm getting charged as a large business, I'm a sole proprietor, I go to work in my truck, I don't get no deliveries. I'm a large business. I get charged the same as any large. That just seems wrong. No, there's not. We battled this and battled it and battled it, and I am a large business. So that's why I said there's got to be some more guidelines on this than. I'm just telling you, I get no deliveries. It's one of those deals. I think there's got to be a little more guidance on this.
Well, I was going to say, it seems to me like the construction arena definitely like that 2 more people than your family. I can go through my brain multiple places that have 2 or 3 or 4 more employees that at any given time may work off that home site out of a garage or out of a shop. They're not necessarily impacting the community. I mean, they're parking the, but it's still. We probably just need to clean it up a little.
I don't know. We need to clean it up for sure. In my opinion, that's big time. So.
493-A specifically lays out what's small and what's large.
Where they've changed it to minor.
I've been a large business in Hudson for 15 years. And I've been a sole proprietor this whole time. Nothing has actually ever changed. So I'm just telling you, that's what I've been. So. What they told me is that did I have a computer, and I said yes, and they said, well, then you're a large business. Go ahead and laugh. I'm just telling you what they told me.
100% of an accessory building?
Do you have deliveries? Do you have employees? Do you have retail sales at your home?
You probably should
Mine
have
was,
told that.
mine was identical for 10 years. I had a truck and a trailer.
I don't have a trailer. I don't have a trailer I use.
For large businesses.
Yeah, I
Because
even,
everything was lumped into that. I'm trying to tell you,
yeah, it
everything,
is.
there wasn't really a
So-
small business. A small business, I guess, is somebody that actually doesn't have a computer.
Well, but so my question is, was this written? Maybe this has been adjusted for that.
Finally, just like, you know what, it's not worth it.
So, yeah, so
I'm
I
wondering if
don't
this is,
know.
I'm wondering if this has
Yeah.
been changed since then.
So
to
I don't know,
define
I don't know about
better.
that. And I just take over for renewals. So if that's what's continued to be paid, then that's fine. But if someone was to come in for a new business now, we have it as a minor. That is somebody who we do allow people who just have an office only, right? So you don't have anyone come to your home, you don't have storage, shipping, in none of those things, you don't have a sales tax number, nothing. That is what I would consider a minor home business, which how I would process that would be an exempt status. So then the home occupation, which is, we don't separate it from large, small, minor, we don't do that anymore. So it's just minor, which is exempt, and then just a regular home occupation, which is what we'll clean up, or what I'm suggesting to clean up here. So the home occupation is somebody who has shipments, sales tax license, inventory, employees, things like that. Then that's where I would classify as a home occupation. So if there's really an issue with maybe how you've been, I don't always know, some of it's just a continuation of how it was. So if it's a renewal of those types of things and how it is on the books, but if,
Well, I actually did renew it in the process because 1 year I forgot to pay it. Didn't really want to admit that part, but I still was classified as a large business twice. What I'm saying, I've gone through this process twice. Luckily, I didn't have to go to the city council, which I was working on to actually do that.
I have a question for thought, as we're thinking through this revision and setting things up. Amazon, right, delivers to everyone's house. I'm sure if they don't come to your house, then you're probably unique. But when we say deliveries, right? How do we differentiate what a delivery is? Like what defines a delivery? Because there's not going to be a business that exists in today's world that doesn't get a delivery, large or small, to their house.
it's mostly people that like package and ship.
Right.
That's what it is.
But we probably
Packaging and
need
shipping.
to define that then, because delivery is pretty broad.
Yeah, and we can, I mean, like I said, we can adjust.
I mean, that
Like, this
FedEx
is-
truck and that UPS truck and that Amazon truck that are at my house,
Yeah, inventory.
way too much.
That's, yeah.
It doesn't.
Maybe on this one, because there is quite a bit of interest, we ought to just have a block on the council agenda, on a future agenda, where we just talk about this and this alone. Everybody will have a chance to read it carefully and talk to neighbors, and that might be helpful.
Like you talk about the penalty for not getting your business license.
I was more worried that I was gonna have to come to the city council. Because back then, everybody came to the council, I'm like, oh boy. I had originally, and just through, my great.
Originally, all business licenses came to the council, and then it just got too much. And so
Yeah, but back then, everybody came, I was not gonna be good. I wasn't ready in that, actually.
Well, we can make the changes that we've talked about, but Mayor, give that some thought. Might be good to have a full discussion on this one, because
Okay, I noted that, so.
a year like this, where so many are working at home, it might have a lot of interest and might be worth taking a look at it in some detail.
Revisiting that and then actually talking to people that just renewing, so you're not a large business. I mean, I think that maybe we gotta reach out to them at the end of the year, or the first of the year, when they renew businesses, find out people that fit the different criteria, because I'm pretty sure I'm not alone.
So Shauna, you said we are not charging the definition of small business anymore.
No, that's
only-
correct. So it'd be exempt. And then some of them still find that they need the actual physical city licensing documentation. So when that's the case, we just do a processing fee of the $15 and that just, that license that they need.
That's why I have to have it for workman's comp, actually.
And once we get all this updated, go through and saying, these are now the definitions for your home business. As we work through these, kind of reclassifying, they're still valid.
Let's move to the last one, special events ordinance. Any thoughts on that? Shauna, how's that worked?
So this, we don't have a ton of special events, but this is just geared towards typically that maybe come into the arena and have a rodeo separately or come to this park and have a commercialized event for spectators in public. So we don't have that many ones. I don't even think we haven't had one. The last one we had was St. Mary's Rodeo. Down there was the last special event that we had, and after that we haven't had any. But there were no issues. So they paid the daily arena fees, they paid the portion for your special events, which just allowed us to charge them for the maintenance that was required after their events. Ended up paying for of the park, and but I haven't had, they're hardly, we don't have them that often, and the ones I haven't had any.
The block parties don't count. We have, yeah, like COVID.
I have a really funny question then about ordinances and different things like that, because it talks about how some might have to close a road or, different things like that, and you have to have contact. And this, for some reason, popped into my head and I don't want to, I think they're doing a great service, but the Santa guy that sent out the map, they do it, they've done it for a couple years now, but they sent out a whole map this year about where they would be traveling and what roads.
Oh, like a
and then told
parade?
you where to stop and
Oh.
park and everything like that. Is that, I think that's a great idea, but I didn't know if that was something that they would need to come and get permission for, where it's using the city.
Yeah,
roads.
it's, it's not limited to parades, like, so we
But
could,
they do, they come down 4,600 here, they come around, I don't think they go down 5,900 or up around 4,000 or anything like that, 'cause they are from down 46 down west, but,
yeah, if it's a big enough thing, then,
they made it bigger
okay.
and they sent out maps. It came to me, our whole road anyway, in the mail, and told us what time they'd be in the area and the whole map of everything.
Yeah, so that's probably something we'll just, or do they do it?
No, it's during Christmas. In fact, my neighbors asked me, they're like, when did the city start doing this? I'm like, yeah, it's not the city.
Okay, yeah, we'll just have to keep an eye on it.
Yeah, okay. Like I said, I think it's a good thing that they were doing. I just didn't know.
Yeah, we want to make sure that they're being, want to make sure that they have the proper permits from fire, Weaver County, Weaver Sheriffs. If we don't want anyone to get hurt or whatever. I don't know what they're doing.
Any other items? That kind of brings us to the end, if there's not any other discussion on that. Okay, seeing that there's not any other discussion, have there been any other citizens' comments that have come in since we've been reviewing this?
There isn't any citizen comments, but I'll just go ahead and just for the record, there was a chat that came through when we were talking about the arena. I think the question was just whether or not, with the grants that we had got, if it will affect the arena, our upgrades that we want to put in. And with the grants that we just got, then it won't be directly affecting the arena. So I just wanted to clear that up.
Right.
but I don't have any requests, for public comment.
Okay. Well, seeing there was not any other public comment, anyone here? Okay, we would entertain a motion to adjourn. Okay, we have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. We're adjourned.